Well, we thought we'd start with a bit of a lovely shot to start with before I move into vision. Welcome. Hello. This is Snetterton Circuit. We're in Norfolk, of course, flat part of England, but don't take that away from the corners that we've got here. There's plenty of them, and there's plenty of excitement that we've got. 2 races as well today, all part of the British GT Championship as well. You may remember when we were at Rockingham, we just had the 1 race. It was a 2-hour race. Well, we're back to 2 1-hour races this afternoon. That means they go hell for leather twice, and it's going to be very exciting as well. We've got some people on pole that you won't have seen before. We won't go into the whole thing about ballast and weight and everything else. We'll leave that to the experts. They're in our commentary box, so let's have a little chat with them while we can. To Bruce Jones, and of course, the doyen of motorsports, someone that has won a British Grand Prix in a Formula 1 car. It's delightful to say that John Watson is with us as well.
Thank you very much, Gary. Very sunny down in the pit lane. Great to see you there. And Watsy, delightful to have you here, fresh back from the Mille Miglia, but we'll come to that later. But Snetterton, you go back a long way with the circuit.
I'm just delighted that Gary pointed out that I won the British Grand Prix in a Formula 1 car, because you couldn't win it in anything else. Really?
Don't be perverse, John.
Well, anyway,
quite so.
Yes, 4 days in the Mille Miglia was absolutely stunning. But here we are at Snetterton on a fantastic day, and I must say, since Motorsport Vision have taken over this racetrack, the changes to it since I was last here, which I think is probably 15, 16 or so years ago, it is transformed.
I think so too. That definitely is the way they go under Motorsport Vision. Good crowd been pouring in all morning. Good crowd again yesterday, but they caught an electrical storm at about 11 in the morning. Fortunately today we have clouds, but they're quite dispersed, and I think we're going to have a full day for people to sit on the banking and enjoy the racing, and certainly a packed agenda them today. But as Gary said down in the pits, this is 2 1-hour races today. The circuit, if you haven't seen Snetterton for quite some while, is rather different. Much more is packed into its length. 2.99 miles, John. 13 corners, but the flow has been very changed.
I mean, this is one of the big differences since I was here last, the introduction of an infield loop within the original Snetterton. It was a one-time Grand Prix circuit, then it was shortened to become a national level circuit. Now just under 3 miles, 2.9, and the owner of this Motorsport Vision, Jonathan Palmer, has chosen to honour many of the motorsport celebrities and personalities and characters by naming a number of the corners after them. Maybe the one that most people would recognise is somebody who's not a Grand Prix driver or a racing driver, but a commentator. Murray Walker.
Final corner of the circuit.
Corner.
Turn number 13. Williams, there's another name. We, of course, has Palmer. We've got Agostini, and we've got one called Hamilton, which is a fast left-hand kink about a third of the way around the lap, where effectively the track is doubling back. But Riches remains the opening corner of the circuit. It's a quick corner too.
It's a very quick corner, and it's become quicker as the years have gone by, as cars have improved, aerodynamics and...
Now, there's a question for you, John. Nelson, which is the second part of the S's, is that because Norfolk is Nelson County, as it says on the signs when you come in, or is it Nelson PK?
Well, I think you could take your choice, but probably in the case of that particular corner, I think it's a reflection of the 3 times world champion Nelson PK, who would have raced here in his formative years when he was dominating Formula 3, largely because he had more budget than the entire field had, and he had a spare car or a test car. But nonetheless, that's how you win championships.
Absolutely so. Now, one of the cars we just saw going out was car number 21. We'll come to what happened to that at Rockingham last time. They thought they'd won, they didn't, but the rules have been changed. But we've got due time to talk about that. There is that Spirit of Race Ferrari. I think it looks fantastic in that dark green and silver livery. 2 Aston Martins look very similar, but one is in GT3 and one is GT4. That's the GT4 runner. How can we tell that, John? Window strips. Red strip across the top for the GT4s and yellow for the big GT3 runners, the 2 Team Parker Racing Bentleys going around. The second one of those is one that transgressed twice in qualifying, which is car number 7, riding on board now. Chance to look at the lap. And of course, track limits are very much a la mode in motor racing.
Yes, and I think rightly so. That's the Logie Bentley Continental GT3. Track limits, because there's so much space on the outside, in particular of corners, that enables drivers in their mind to take advantage of it. Finally, I think race directors and stewards are now saying more than enough is enough, so everything's being pulled back in. Of course, competitors are whinging and whining, saying, well, why can't we? It's there, we want to use it. The reality is you drive effectively between the demarcating lines on either side of the racetrack as we now come down what was the famous straight. It went on much, much longer. No, sorry,
This is coming under the bridge.
Yes.
This is up to the corner called Brundle, which is the first part of the old
Yes.
S's. Then we go to Nelson. Worth pointing out, John, then we get to the part of the track that seems quite old school, if you will. We get to the next corner, which is the bomb hole, which is a classic corner. Then you have to hang on the whole way around Coram.
The original circuit, the one I was referring to, actually,
the London Straight.
The straight went forever, and there was a hairpin bend at the end of it. Then you came back and you actually joined where the S's in effect now exit. So instead of turning right, you were turning left, and then you went into the bomb hole. And then this corner, which is one of the great corners of all our British circuits, Coram, a corner that can catch out anybody at any time. The point of it is you're still really in the curve when you've got to get out of the throttle, on the brakes for that very tight shift of direction to the left for Murray's, and then back on to start, finish straight. Pit lane entrance, of course, on the right-hand side. And the reason why the corner, now Murray's corner, has been maybe slightly altered is that there was always a concern that people were coming through Coram so quickly, overshooting, and potentially getting into a danger area.
Well, the pit lane was
entrance.
effectively dead ahead at that point.
Yeah.
Worth pointing out, John, the two races here at Snetterton. It's a Pro-Am category championship, if you will, and it's the AMs who set the times for the grid for race one, and the AMs who will start. So the front row will be Jack Mitchell and John Minshaw. The car we've just driven around with, the number 7 Bentley, that will be started by Ian Loggy, for example, so he gave us a taster of the track. 27 cars mixed between GT3 and GT4, predominantly now with GT4 in the championship, and as you can see the McLarens are running in the GT4 class and very popular. But the car on pole is car number 24, Macmillan AMR. Jack Mitchell will be starting the car, but let's go down and hear from James Littlejohn with Gary.
Well, no car, but we've got a driver at least, or at least we've got a co-driver. This is all getting very confusing, isn't it? Tell us, pole position, how do we get there? How was it all good?
Yeah, well, very good, yeah. I mean, Jack did a really, really impressive job yesterday in the first qualifying to take pole by almost a second, which is, it's the closest we've been, as a silver-silver pairing with the weights, the closest we've been to the rest of the field. So, no, really, really pleased. Mega job from Jack, obviously, yesterday.
Now, in a way, Jack slightly cheated because all of the rest of the amateur drivers and you two boys are silver, but you do carry a bit of a penalty for being cliver dicks.
Yeah, we carry an extra, I think, 65 kilos for this weekend, which doesn't really sound a lot, but
sounds a lot to me.
Yeah, we sort of reckon it probably makes a 3/4 of a second a lap difference. So, yes. Jack obviously is very, very, very fast, but he is carrying that penalty. So, nonetheless, it's still an impressive feat to be on the front row.
Okay. So if we put you in the car, it wouldn't make a lot of difference because you don't weigh 65 kilos, do you?
Well, we actually have to put more weight on because I'm under the driver weight, so we have an extra 5 kilos in the car for that as well, which Jack has to carry.
Right. What you need, James, is a bit of pie and mash. See, that's what you need. Like me. There you go. Right, let's move on and go and talk to your driver.
Yes.
And we'll come back in a bit. Thank you very much. Right, James. Hello. Well, let's go down to. I'll tell you what we can do is we can go talk to John Minshaw, who's in the car. Who's this one? He's sat next to him currently, and spookily. Rather nicely. Look at this. Look, we've almost planned this. Look at this. This is proper telly moment, this. So we've got we've outside the car, Phil Keane, and inside is John. He did all the work, so I don't really know why we're going to talk to you, but he did a good job for you.
Yeah, he is. He's driving really well at the moment, so we'll just see how the race goes.
Okay. John, slightly pipped to the post, but you can take credit, if you like, and also take heart from the fact that the guys next to you are silver drivers. So they're both pros, essentially.
Yeah, but doesn't it's a bit frustrating. Still want to beat them. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll have a go. It's just I hope it doesn't interfere with our race and our championship. Attack.
In terms of Lamborghini, and here we, at Snetterton, Phil, let's look at the car. Is it suited here? Is it going to be difficult? There's a lot of corners.
Yeah, I mean this track suits our car. We went well here last year. I think when we get to Silverstone and Brands, it'll be different. But this is definitely, I'd say, one of our strongest circuits just for the car. So we're hoping for a good result.
Is it a difficult drive with all the corners?
No, it's okay. I mean, the car suits the stop-start corners very well because it's mid-engine. So we'll see what happens.
At Rockingham, we had a 2-hour race. Here we've got 2 1-hour races. Is that a completely different strategy, or is it just absolutely balls out from beginning?
Yeah, I think even the 24-hour races now are sprint races. It doesn't matter how long the race is. It seems to always be a sprint. The cars are so reliable now and robust that there's no need really to be looking after them.
Okay, good. Right, best of luck for the two of you. We'll come and talk to you again, Phil, before the next race. Let's move down. Let's go and talk to Rick Parfitt, because you may recall that when we were at Rockingham, it was Rick Parfitt that was sort of outdone, so to speak. We won't dwell on that, but we'll see if we can just grab a quick word with him. He's around the other side of the car. See if we can scoot past and get a word. Let's go in. Right, young man. So, better weekend than Rockingham we're hoping for.
Well, we won at Rockingham, so that's. I don't know how we can get better than that, but we're boost restricted at this circuit, so we always kind of wrote this weekend off, and it was always going to be a damage limitation exercise for us. The fact is, the team have actually put together an amazing handling car, and whereas on the speed traps, in all 3 speed traps, are either last or second last by quite some way, the car seems to be very good in the fast corners. So for us to qualify this high up was a massive surprise yesterday. But it's a long championship, so for us, with this time penalty as well, that we have obviously carried over from Rockingham, we have to box clever, and we've got to just damage limitate this race, try and score as many points as possible and set us up for a good second race. But we know we're not in the same sort of speed as the Lambos and the Astons, so you'll just see me trying to lasso myself onto the back of these guys and just hang on as best I can.
Rick, it's worth mentioning there, you mentioned time penalty. It's 10 seconds you guys get,
yeah.
And that's added to your pit stop.
Yeah, it means obviously it keeps the championship interesting, and I think it's quite a good thing. But obviously, in this race, it's not great for us. But so the point is, I've got to try and build as big a gap as I can, and whether that's trying to get in front of them or whether that's trying to work almost as a team and try and follow the fast boys and try and stick with them and try and see if I can build a bit of a gap. I mean, that's it. Realistically, if we can get top 6 in this first race, that would be a really good result and set us up well for the second race. Basically, second race, do as best we can, score heavy points. That's the main aim, and then go to Silverstone where we know the car's really good.
Great. Okay, Rick, best of luck. Thanks very much. Let's move on from Rick Parfitt. Let's see if we can get ourselves down, if we can, to the others down here. We are looking for the pole 51 car down there. Sorry, Brownie, making you walk fast. This is our cameraman he's terribly slim and fit. We'll just go past some of these other cars on the way down here. Just passing there, the Johnson Adam car. So now let's just see if we can get up to here. So we're heading for Alex Reed, and I'm hoping Dave Pittard is going to be out of the car, but it doesn't look like he is. We'll just get a very quick chance to chat to him, I think, if we can. Quick word, Alex. Very important, you boys. Happy with pole, I'll bet.
Yeah, very happy. 2 years in a row, so I couldn't be a happier boy right now.
And in terms of the race and this car, I mean, at Rockingham, it suited it. What about here?
I think this circuit suits the McLarens more, but yeah, I think in the amateur side of things, as long as they don't get past us at the start, we'll be okay for the session until the pros come in. So hopefully we'll stay where we are, stay on pole, and not do the same thing as what happened last year.
Okay, a quick question as well. From a viewer point of view, they will have seen a 2-hour race at Rockingham. They've got 2 1-hour races here. Does it make a lot of difference in terms of the race for you? Do you prefer to get your teeth into a 2-hour?
Yeah, I much prefer the endurance races because it gives you time to sort of think about what you're doing and, remain composed and save tyres, and there's much more to think about. Well, okay, not much more to think about, but there's a lot more time to think about stuff, whereas the sprint race is all, bam, 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 bam. You have to make split-second decisions all the time, and I hate to say I'm a slow driver, I'm not, but I'm I'm much more of a slow thinker, so I prefer the endurance style.
I think what he's trying to say, viewers, is he's an intelligent thinking driver. That's what he means to say. Yes, you say, look, thumbs up, well done. Right, that's Alex Reid. He's on pole for the GT4 class. GT3s are up here, of course. Let's go back to John Watson and also to Bruce Jones in the commentary box, and then we'll get this race underway here on Front Runner.
Thank you very much, Gary. You were so late on the grid, I thought they were going to have to bundle you in a car, and that'll be a bit more than 65 kilos of extra weight ballast. John, what do you reckon?
Well, I'm not making any comment on Gary's current physical condition, but it's been consistent over the years. Just interestingly, looking at the difference in times between the GT3 and GT4 around this 3-mile Snetterton racetrack, it's actually within 10 seconds. So how long will it be within the first half of this 1 hour before the lead cars start mixing and having to overtake the back markers? Also, the nature of the circuit. You've got the long Bentley straight, you've got the almost as long Senna straight. Those are the two principal fast areas. But you've got really quick corners like Richards, thinking about the Bentley in particular, also through the S's, through the bomb hole, Coram. So it's a balance between straight line performance and good handling. So Rick Parfitt maybe sounding maybe not pessimistic but cautious. But that's a car I think that will be competitive. This difficulty will be in overtaking. So consolidating your position off the grid, really important for that number 31 Bentley.
Just want to pick up, of the first 4 cars you can see on the grid, only number 33, which is the Lamborghini on the right-hand side of the screen, does not have success penalty. It doesn't have any extra time. It'll be at a standstill in the pit stop. The pole starting Aston Martin, 5 seconds extra. Rick Parfitt behind, 10 seconds extra. And the second of the Barwell Lamborghinis, the blue and black one, that's number 6, with Liam Griffin at the wheel, that is an extra 7 seconds. And again, that process is repeated down in the GT4 class when the top 3 runners in the second of the races at Rockingham, at the end of the race in Rockingham, will have those extra time at a standstill in the pits. So let's just enjoy the 27 cars as they go up to Rich's slowly, gently on this formation lap. There we were looking at Lee Mole in the AMD tuning Mercedes, and that last car off the grid in 27th position is Will Phillips. So we've got a Macmillan AMR Aston Martin starting first and one starting last. Here is the grid, and it's Jack Mitchell starting from pole in the 24 Aston Martin. John Minshaw alongside in the first of 2 Barwell Lamborghinis. Then Rick Parfitt in one of the 2 Parker Bentleys. Liam Griffin completes the second row. Mark Farmer on the outside in number 5 of, and then Lee Mole in the Mercedes, the first of the Mercedes, down in 6th place. Johnston and Cameron on row 4, and Richard Neary and Ian Loggy. They complete the GT3 runners and equally complete the top 10 cars in this 27 car field. Advantage Aston Martin at the moment. Of course, we've got the spread around, John, with the pit stop time penalties, success ballast if you have 2 silver runners in the car. But let's just enjoy the fact we've got 27 cars coming out to play. Alex Reid, we heard from him. It's an all Ginetta front row, if you will. Row 6 of the overall grid is where the GT4s start. And Will Tregurtha, starting alongside, took victory in the GT4 class last time out at Rockingham. And this year we've got a whole host of McLaren 570Ss, very popular as GT4 continues to expand year on year. It's getting bigger and bigger, and the fact that we can stretch onto a 3rd timing page there, down to 27th place, which is Will Phillips. We're sharing with Danish racer Jan Jonk, just shows the growth of this formula. Ginettas seem very, very nimble at Rockingham, but as we heard from Alex Reid, he thinks the advantage could swing this weekend here in Norfolk at Snetterton to the McLarens, but let's see, was he just being modest? But what we can see is the cars halfway around the lap, going around Oggies, which is where it's effectively a kinked double right-hander, tight and then a slightly more open one. Then they get to Williams and then go down the old traditional, it was called the Revit Straight, and for years now it's been called the Bentley Straight, but where they can really stretch their legs. But unlike the old days, they weren't hitting that back straight at speed through a fast corner, it's through a slow corner, and therefore it's a slightly different situation when they get down to the end of that straight, John, to the S's. They're not in such big groupings as before.
Well, we'll wait and see. I think it'll be very tightly packed, certainly in the opening lap. But what was interesting, looking back to Rockingham, where you've got that very tight infield section, the nimbleness of the little Ginetta was very, very obvious indeed, whereas on the banking and down into turn 2 at Rockingham, the straight line performance of the McLaren was very much to the fore. So what will happen here, I don't know. I'm going to be curious to see. I think it will be very much about who gets into Rich's first of all, either in the GT3 or the GT4 category. can to some degree then consolidate and keep that position. Maybe it'll be in pit stops or the driver changes that some of these overtakes may eventually take place.
Now, if you were strapped to the back of the Lamborghini on the outside of the front row, started by John Minshaw, that's the view you would have. You can see Parfitt coming across behind and tucked in the second Lamborghini, Liam Griffin. Wonderful low shot. So let's just stress this grid for the first of the 2 races at Snetterton. 2 1-hour races were decided by the AM drivers, and those AM drivers in any pairing are the ones who are starting the race. Big smiles from James Littlejohn. His Aston Martin is being started from Jack Mitchell from pole position. Wow, what a fantastic shot as we start to go through Murray's, and now winding it up as they come onto the start-finish straight. The safety car pulls out into the pit lane, off the circuit into the pit lane, and now 2 by 2 the cars should be approaching the start-finish line. Wave green flag, they're happy at the back that all is good. So the starter up on the gantry is looking down. Are they good? The slight gap, in fact the second of those Bentleys needs to get up to join the top 10 runners in GT3, but it looks like a very good start from pole position. Jack Mitchell, has he got ahead of John Minshaw? I think the nose of the Aston Martin still in front, very close indeed. Grid order held through the first corner through Riches from the top 6 runners down in GT4, very close indeed, 17 of them trying to find position. Now they go out of Riches up to the tightest corner on the circuit, which is the Wilson hairpin. They then double back down. Lee Mole looking very positive in the red and white AMD tuning Mercedes. You see how tight it is down in GT4 as well, the McLaren up front, but really at the front of the race and clear by a small margin at the moment is Jack Mitchell. There he is, opening out a bit of a gap, in fact really a remarkable gap, John, as they go down to Brundle and into Nelson. So that's the end of the back straight.
Yeah, maybe just confirming what Rick Parfitt Jr. was saying is they don't have a huge amount of straight line speed. You could see how big the gap between first, second and then to third place already on this opening lap, and Rick Parfitt Jr. always under challenge. Liam Griffin in the Lamborghini, the Mercedes GT3 AMG, or AMG GT3 as it is correctly to be known.
Well,
sticking its nose up the inside.
Indeed, and I think they're rather being bottled up behind Rick Parfitt Jr. Oh, a little mistake there from it. I don't know if it was the Bentley.
That was the Bentley, yeah.
And it kicked up the dirt in Lee Mole's face, and that's made him back off just a tiny bit. And then behind, we got Derek Johnson starting to make an attack. But up front, and really rocketing clear, Jack Mitchell. I'm sure if we put a camera on the face of James Littlejohn in the pit, the smile that was big before the start of the race would be bigger still. That is a very, very impressive opening lap.
Absolutely. I mean, he's already pulled the best part of 2 seconds and just over halfway around the lap. There's second place Lamborghini, third Bentley, fourth Lamborghini, Mercedes, Aston Martin, Ferrari, Duncan Cameron. The car which we believed, and naively maybe as it turns out, was the winner back in Rockingham. There had to be a reassessment, readjustment of what took place. So Duncan Cameron behind the wheel of the car. Matt Griffin will take over very shortly.
Okay, how big's the advantage at the end of the opening lap? So big that we can't see the race leader. 3.3 seconds clear of John Minshaw. Rick Parfitt starting to close in, under a second down on Minshaw in that battle for second place. Has he managed to drop off those behind him? Yes, he's got almost a second advantage, but it's when it gets the twisty stuff that we might see the Bentley start to close in on Minshaw. He's done very well on the fast parts of the circuit where he said that Bentley just doesn't have the straight line speed and really, really suffers. Now we're riding, this is the second of the Bentleys. This is number 7 with Ian Loggy down at the tail end. He's last in the GT3 class, GT3s, filling the top 10 positions, and behind, leading the way in GT4 is the Rockingham winner. Will Tregurtha has moved ahead of Alex Reed. It's a 55 leading that class, but at the moment we're looking forward onto tail of Richard Leary's Mercedes AMG GT3. And it looks Loggy isn't quite managing to hang on, but everyone's starting to settle down. Very clean opening lap. I think we didn't have a touch, a bang, a spin, and anything. One car tucked a wheel onto the dirt, and here
well, you can just
GT4
see
battling.
Yeah.
That's the one that's coming up from the very, very tail of the end of the grid. That was Will Phillips, the number 42 Aston Martin. He's already gained about 8 places on that opening lap and a quarter. But out front, it's the sister car, the GT3 class, that's just streaking away. Jack Mitchell dominating the first couple of minutes of this race, and doesn't look as though anyone's got a response at this stage.
Currently, there's no response. He just pulled over 3.3 seconds on the opening lap. It's probably going to be nearer to 5 by the time we get to the completion of lap 2. John Minshaw has got close attention from Rick Parfitt Jr. and Liam Griffin in the Lamborghini, so second, third and fourth as we go back to the battle or the lead of the GT4 category. Surprisingly or unsurprisingly, just one of the little Genettas.
Yep, and it's Will Tregurtha. He also got the jump on Alex Reid. He'll be handing over later in the race to Stuart Middleton, but he's really getting a bit of space behind him, looking so well balanced. And again, we just had the shot showing the second place battle, and just flashing out at the bottom of the picture was our race leader, Jack Mitchell. He gained another 1.2 seconds on that lap, 4.5 seconds clear. Aston Martins aren't quite in the mix so far this weekend. Mark Farmer and Derek Johnson, 6th and 7th, number 1, driven by Derek Johnson. He's got Duncan Cameron in that dark green Ferrari closing right onto his tail, but we can see them just losing a little bit of ground for the field ahead of them. So the bottom 4 cars in GT3 very close. Ian Lockey still hanging on in the number 7. But this field breaking into groups, but the only person not in a group is our race leader, Jack Mitchell, flashing out of shots.
Yes, 4.5 seconds as they came across the line at the end of the second lap, and basically we're now seeing little gaps. It's really between the Mercedes of Lee Mole and the Aston Martin in 6th place. That's one of the few bits of, you might call it, racing. It's surprising that it's actually opened up the gaps between particularly the GT3 cars as much as we're seeing.
Well, let's just back to the GT4 battle. Leading the way is Will Tregurtha, Alex Reid, who started on pole, and Sandy Mitchell, all really running very close together. And then behind them, the best of the Aston Martins, so that's Will Moore. But that last time around, the gap between the 55 Ginetta and the Chaser, the 51 from Lanan Racing, was 1.2 seconds. It seems to be about the same, both being driven very well indeed, but that McLaren starting to hunt them down, and as we said, handling in such a different way. Mitchell really making very, very tiny progress.
They're two totally different concepts. The Ginetta is basically a lightweight space frame chassis, lightweight body panels, very nicely made, very beautifully balanced to drive. McLaren, a very sophisticated, ultimate GT car, a lot more horsepower, 4.4 litre, I think it is, twin turbo V8. But whether, I'm not sure it's running still with a full hydraulic suspension, or whether it's gone to what the GT3 car has, which is a proper, what I would call mechanical or analog in hi-fi terms, suspension. So the McLaren, less of a race car, maybe one would say, than the Ginetta, which clearly is very much track-based.
Well, here we are riding on board with one of those GT4 runners. It's 5:01. It's Graham Johnson, the Optimum Motorsport Ginetta, and just a chance to see at the end of the lap. There's the pit entry lane, and straightening it up past the pits that have been here forever at Snetterton and up to Richards. Let's hope I was going to hope we could ride through the corner. I was wrong. Car 42. Contact will be investigated after the race. Who is car 42? You may well ask, and I will tell you.
So this is the run up to the renamed Wilson.
Okay, thank you very much.
Who's 42, Bruce?
42 is the Aston Martin that started at the very, very rear of the grid. Will Phillips driving it. He started 27th place. He got very quickly up the order on the opening lap, gained 5 or 6 places. He's actually down in 22nd, so maybe he's lost one, but we didn't see the contact, and haven't seen the front of the car to see if the damage is on that, but that's not for now, that's for after the race. So still leading the way, it's Jack Mitchell in the sister car, the GT3 entry from Generation AMR, and that is clear by 5.7 seconds, but still riding on board with the 501 Ginetta, not gaining ground, not losing it, but a great chance to see that battle up ahead, staying off the curbs as much as possible.
Yeah, the quick flick through Hamilton, then down the brakes down to Uggies, and then it's a sort of slightly dogleg exit, then up to the sort of almost double apex Williams, which takes us on to the part, I would say, joint fastest part of the racetrack. Somewhere normally I'm familiar with watching cars coming down this Bentley straight and sort of all spreading out as they come down to the braking to go into the chicane. And we noticed in one of the races prior to this, that's where you get a lot of braking areas, braking too late, shooting across the inside. You've got to give that up if you've picked up a position. Once again, dust on the outside of Domhole. That may again have been Rick Parfitt in the Bentley, having to use all the damage.
Well, there is the damage. Well, beautifully picked up. That's the car that started from the very tail end of the grid. Made great progress on the opening lap, but at some cost. Anyhow, that will be investigated after the race. Will Phillips will keep pressing on. Next car in his sights is Anna Valeska, number 111 Ginetta, so he's caught the tail of that group. Can he do anything about it? There's Valeska in front, and in front of her is Pattison, the driver whose number is 56. His age is slightly higher than that. Absolutely loving his racing, sharing with Joe
You can see
Osborne.
the Aston's got straight line performance. Can't quite just get up on the inside coming in to Richards, but has to back out, and then up into the braking zone into Wilson. Not much. The slightly, I would imagine, heavier Aston Martin against the Ginetta directly ahead can do about it. These GT4 cars only got 4 sets of tyres per weekend. GT3 get 5 sets of the Pirelli 2017 GT3 spec tyre. So they have to be conscious when they go into practice qualifying that they've got something fresh as possible to enable them. Oh, and there's smoke coming out from the. Is that a
Well, that's
tyre?
501. That's the car that's had the camera,
There's
the
tyre,
forward-facing
there's
camera.
like a tyre rub.
So that's number 501, running in 18th position overall. He's just over a second down on Michael Caine. Michael Caine got a new partner this weekend in Jake Giddings. Giddings should be the start driver, but Caine is listed as the start driver on the timing screen, so we'll just pay attention to that. But yes, another side-on shot from that car. It was under braking for Murray's. We saw all the smoke coming out of the side of the car, so maybe compression under braking. Picks it up quite bouncy down that back straight. Is that bouncy because we've got a tyre going down, do you think, John?
No, I think it's just, you know, race tracks, they sort of settle after they've been resurfaced. This track, of course, has been resurfaced in total. And this car was having smoke coming off that left rear, but that seems to have cleared away. So now it makes its way around the long, never-ending, very exciting, but potentially hazardous corner, and then hard on the brakes, down a few gears, into Murray's, overrunning the back of the McLaren. But watch the straight line squirt of the McLaren. Nothing you can do about that. That's just simply 550 odd brake horsepower. Okay, it's offset by being a heavier chassis, heavier car, but nevertheless, that's the advantage the McLaren enjoys. Into Riches, where it's almost sort of even Stevens, maybe marginally quicker on the exit before the Ginetta has a look down the inside, but he's not close enough to do anything seriously. If he did, undoubtedly there would have been contact, but you can see the challenge the McLaren the Ginetta has. The straight line performance of the McLaren is always going to be something that he's having to battle with.
Yeah, but Michael Caine, a multiple champion in national racing, GT champion, and also a TBR champion in the past, all over the back of Dean and McDonald. This is the group from the other end. The car number 72 in the middle is Adam Ballon. At the front is the Aston Martin Wilmore, 14th, 15th, 16th, and 17th. But Michael Caine for RCI, the insurance team, giving a really, really good tuck in at the back. But as we keep mentioning, John, different points on the circuit suit different cars, and Michael really, really working this infield section as hard as he can, trying to find a chink in the armour, maybe hoping that Dean McDonald will get a little bit loose behind Adam Ballon, and then he'll be able to pounce. But they get to the next part of the circuit, then I'm afraid it's going to go away from Michael Caine down.
When you're in the situation Michael Caine's in, you know that you can't challenge a car in these fast parts of the circuit, but you know you've got the car to make the challenge, and it really does sort of focus you and almost inspires you, lifts you to try even harder than you might do if you're in a McLaren. Just simply, that's one of the nature of motorsport, and I can reflect back on my own experiences in recent days with only 80 horsepower under my right foot, but things I overtook you wouldn't believe.
Well, John, you said you sort of unplugged yourself for the Mille Miglia retrospective, and I don't suppose you had a horrible time.
Opened the box, and it wasn't Pandora I found.
This is the battle for 5th and 6th place. Lee Mole going very well. Mark Farmer tucked in behind. A little bit of stalemate here, but let's just enjoy the sight of the Mercedes AMG being pushed very hard indeed by the Aston Martin Vantage. Of course, the AMD team owned by Sean Hollenby, and Lee Mole has been under his wing for a couple of years, shares with Welsh racer Ryan Ratcliffe. But there you can see the Aston Martin closing it enormously. Again, as we said, the ebb and flow between the Aston Martin and the Mercedes, different sorts of cars, powering off down the back straight up to the S's, and it looks like the advantage there is actually with the Aston Martin.
Well, I think just watching the different lines that both drivers took coming onto the Bentley straight, the Aston sort of was slightly later at making its apex and seemed to gain slightly on the exit of that by carrying a little bit more speed. Now coming to the bomb hole, there's a dip in there, it's a nasty dip, and if you catch it wrongly, it can unsettle the car. Now into this long Coram corner, and you can see basically the Aston is fractionally quicker. Its pace is being inhibited by that of the Mercedes AMG GT3. Once back onto the straight, well, I would assume that the straight line performance of the Mercedes, you can see actually visually it's pulling away, but when we get to Riches, the Aston will close up. What he wants to try and do is get the run off this corner as best as he can judge it, carry the speed, and now look down the inside. Still not quite close enough, but that's one of the places where I think that you can see the 11 Aston Martin will be making a move. Mark Farmer behind the wheel.
Yeah, Mark seems to have getting the power down a little earlier coming out of tight corners, but then when you get to the longer stretches, Lee Mole seems to be able to stretch his legs in that Mercedes and pull away over and over again. Had a couple of drivers warned for not respecting track limits. Black and white flag is being showed to the driver number 36, which is Michael Caine. We were on board with him just a lap and a half ago.
I mean, look, if the guy's only just trying to get past the McLarens ahead of him, you know, maybe in some circumstances, but it is a rule that has to be adhered to. So no doubt Michael Caine will be being advised by his pit as we see the lead Aston Martin with an almost 9-second advantage at the end of lap 7 coming through the exit of the chicane through Nelson Corner down into the bomb hole and just driving in a different race. Has somebody told them that actually there are other cars in this race?
Well, he's getting to see them, John, because he started, I think, a little bit of lapping. I saw a car, he'd just gone past. There's one just flashing into view ahead of him, but such is his speed advantage. His best lap so far, very close to 1 minute 50 flat. The best of the rest, 1 minute 50.7. But that opening lap, 3.3 seconds clear, that was it. Yeah, and got the job done.
And that fastest lap so far on lap 7 is 1.5 seconds off what they do in qualifying. Bearing in mind when they're running on very little fuel and they've probably got a very fresh set of tyres. Up the inside, the Lamborghini looked like it was going to take a pop. Or was I mistaken? It was for one of the GT4
It was one of the
cars.
GT4 runners. They've just started overtaking them. The 43 Fresel cars being parted. Richard Taffender will be next into view. But just going back, we said at the start of the race we were talking about the silver-silver pairing in the Aston Martin that's led away from pole position. Don't forget, all those giving chase are the AMs, John, and I think that's not to be underestimated. That's the essence of the British GT Championship.
Yes, I mean, you put the AM into the car to start the race, but if you run under silver-silver, then when the second silver driver gets in to the Aston Martin, it'll be James Littlejohn. He may then realise that, well, as a quality silver driver, maybe there's a little bit of a difference between that and gold.
Exactly so, but he's doing all he can. He's very nearly 10 seconds. He's just over 9 seconds clear, and I'm sure within 2 laps that will be 10 seconds. Team Parker Racing, 2 Bentleys here for them this weekend. Ian Logie running in 10th, and Rick Parfitt having a very quiet race. He's just over a second down on John Minshaw. Can't do anything about it in the number 31 Bentley, but he said it was about scoring points. Don't forget he's got that longer pit stop coming, John, which is a problem. He's doing all he can right now.
Yeah, the beauty is that the third place Bentley has got nearly 5 seconds advantage now over Liam Griffith in the Lamborghini. So he has had a very good opening, 8 laps now on the 9th lap. He's keeping in touch just about to the rear wing of the 33 Lamborghini, John Minshaw behind the wheel as we ride on board in the Lamborghini. Having a little bit of traffic, that's one of the Nissan 370Zs.
That's Richard Taffender up ahead. That'll be dispensed of very easily on the start-finish straight. But don't forget, John Minshaw has no extra time at a standstill in the pit stops. But the Bentley being chased, number 31, that's 10 seconds extra. It has to be at a standstill. The car that's in 4th place has 7 seconds extra. So the Bentley should come out ahead of the second of the Bywell Lamborghinis, but the 33 Lamborghini, the red and green one at the right-hand side of the screen, will have no such disadvantage in the pit stop, and that should really propel it towards the front.
Well, it's ironic that the Bentley, currently in 3rd place, has as they explained on the grid, a turbo boost adjustment, but also carry extra weight.
Look, 2 cars look rather similar. 2 Aston Martins with that wonderful, almost Hesketh-esque red and blue stripes up their flanks. But the GT3 runner with Jack Mitchell has just lapped the sister car from the GT4 class, started by Will Phillips.
But the Aston using that opportunity to try and get past the Lamborghini or the McLaren directly ahead of it. And no, it doesn't. It gets right onto the rear wing, but it hasn't got the momentum to carry it through.
So frustrating for Will Phillips, but David Patterson doing a very good job there, keeping it clean, keeping it tight. Anna Valeska closing in behind in the 111 Ginetta, so she has been passed by the Aston Martin. David Patterson's going to see if he can hold on all the way to the pit stop. You can see the cars fanning out down the straight, but it's still that dark 56 Tolman McLaren that's holding sway, but certainly you feel that Will Phillips is a force who cannot be resisted. The front of his car, well, did a little bit of resistance And in fact, the whole grouping is closing up. But in the background, you might have just been able to see on a long shot, we should have, yes, you can see the Lamborghini in second place overall, John Minshaw, and behind him, Rick Parfitt in the Bentley. They will have to pass this gaggle of cars, which is exactly what they do not want. It's going to favour one of them. We can't tell you if it's going to be Minshaw or Parfitt who will benefit from this group in front of them. They've got to pass not one, not two, not three, but 4 cars in the GT4 class.
There you can see the Lamborghini has cleared the Nissan. Now you've got Mr. Parfitt headlights flashing, trying to put John Minshaw under more pressure. He's got to focus on these GT4 cars ahead of him. Parfitt slides up the inside, gets through cleanly. He must not, if he wants to challenge for second place, allow the Lamborghini to get some of these GT4 cars between them. That will lead to total loss of momentum. Up the inside. Oh, is there contact with the 42? Probably not. But look, Minshaw's done what he had to do. He's gotten through cleanly, and now Parfitt has been marginally caught behind the 42 Aston Martin, and that's where he will lose out.
Entirely so. As they got to Palmer, it was advantage Minshaw in the Lamborghini. Patterson stays where he can. He wasn't in a position to get out of the way, but it has very much swung the way. I'd second a second or so gained by John Minshaw in second place, and despite the flashing of the headlights, now we're looking back from Minshaw's car, and here comes the Bentley, but he's off the racing line and he's lost. I'd say he's doubled the disadvantage he had. It was 2 seconds, but actually it could have been a whole lot worse for Rick Parfitt.
And again, the back end of the Bentley just getting slightly wayward as they come out of Uggie's, then up into Williams. So difficult moment for both John Minshaw and Rick Parfitt Jr., but the Lamborghini was first on the scene and managed to use that traffic to his advantage. Now, all the hard work that Rick Parfitt Jr. was involved with, trying to keep in contact with the Lamborghini, he's got to, and then you see the Liam Griffin car also sliding through the GT4 cars.
Yep, so he's put himself between David Patterson in the dark McLaren from Tolman Racing, and in behind we have the car that started last on the grid with Will Phillips. Battered, tattered front end. Oh, he's just made the move. Just made the move. Got past David Patterson, just mentioning the two of them, and suddenly using the moment that the Liam Griffin Lamborghini was coming through. Patterson seems to have been rattled because he's now being challenged by Sam Webster in number 63. So Webster's got past him as well, all going horribly wrong. And gosh, it's really, really bunching up in that little group. We've got Tim Eakin trying to get in the mix as well in the number 54, Ginetta. So suddenly, having driven so well to resist those behind, David Patterson's had a really horrible half lap.
Well, I mean, we're sort of going away from GT3, the lead cars, up to the GT4 category, where they really are involved in a corner-by-corner battle.
Yeah, it's quite mesmerising looking to see who's going to make the next move. Anna Valeska, can she get the braking done? Yeah, but the person who's gained big time has been Tim Eakin, who's got past the whole group of those Ginettas in that grouping. And then suddenly they've got Lee Mole, and right behind him in that GT3 battle, fighting over 5th place overall, Lee Mole and Mark Farmer, the Aston Martin, getting very close indeed. Those very glorious, reflective blue wings closing on the tail of the much more purposeful looking Mercedes AMG GT3. It's almost 3 abreast. Oh, at contact. Farmer went up the inside, tried to seize the moments that went past Tim Eakin, and thumped the side of Lee Mole's Mercedes. That'll have the temperature rising in the cockpit there. So up into 5th place goes the Aston Martin, back down to 6th goes Lee Mole, but you can guarantee his dander is up, and David Patterson has to drive somewhere on the track there. He's trying to keep out of the way, but you've got those 2 GT3 runners coming through and past him. He's kept out of the way, but a couple of laps Patterson's had. He's always attacked from every side.
It's a difficult balance when you're in a GT4 car because you're involved in the heat of the battle, and it is an intense battle. And you've got the GT3 cars coming through. They just thunder past. They're physically much larger cars. They just carry more momentum. They don't want to lose that momentum. They just want to get through quickly, cleanly, and move on and get to the next one. Again, watching Duncan Cameron being cautious, slowing right down, I mean, way below, and now being challenged by the Nissan as they come out of
he was very lucky there, because Tim Eakin actually rather delayed him, and now has actually just chopped across the nose of Richard Neary as they go into the bomb hole and then up the inside through Coram. So it actually went advantage Cameron. It looks like he'd been slightly hampered, but no, Eakin's kept out of the way. You can see Loggy in the background in the number 7 Bentley. He's the next one who's trying to get past Tim Eakin. 88, the ABBA Commercials Mercedes, that being driven very hard over the curbs, but luckily hauled back onto the circuit by Richard Neary. But that grouping, and at the front of that grouping, Derek Johnson was able to pull clear. He's running in 6th place overall. Duncan Cameron lost a little bit of ground in that grouping, but it stretched out, and coming back, David Patterson off on the left of the screen through Riches. Still a fantastic tight call. We've got one of the cars off the side.
Gap between first and second, 10.5 seconds or so. Second to third, 1.2 seconds. So the Bentley, and there we see the 11 Is that an early pit stop?
Well, it's too early. Is this after the contact? This
Or
is
is
Mark Farmer after the contact, I would suggest.
Yes, it's not a pit stop per se in the window. So he's just come in.
Okay. Well, we had that contact with Lee Mole, and here is a replay coming up. GT4 cars, as far as you can see, up the inside comes the
and
Aston.
there you go. So has that cut the tyre down? It probably has. And Lee Mole just leaning or being lent upon by the Aston. His tyre looks okay there, but maybe that's, well, there we are.
Okay, so that's the first of the pit stops, but that's not your regular one, so you can't see the cut in it.
It doesn't look to be, but whatever the problem was, that was an immediate pit stop for Mark Farmer to get back in, change the wheel. He will. This is the McLaren, we think, in the exit
stopped.
of.
Is it one of the Black Bull
That's
cars?
the car that was on the exit of Rich's.
Okay, car 29, Marcus Hogarth. He'd been going very well in the class, so he'll be very frustrated with that. Great looking car in that orbital livery, but pulled off at the exit of Rich's. You can see the track where it doubles back down to Palmer, having gone up to the hairpin at Wilson. Second place now absolutely way clear of Rick Parfitt. On that, it was 1.2 seconds clear on the previous lap, and it's now 3.1. So let's call it 2 seconds among friend. Shed in traffic for Rick Parfitt Jr. He'll be very frustrated in that third place Bentley. Don't forget, he's got that 10-second extra, or his car has got 10 extra seconds at standstill in the pit stops. Where is the Bentley just getting past? That's Adam Ballon's Track Club McLaren, so he continues to lose out in traffic, which will be enormously frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, this is where, to some respect, and with respect to the AM drivers, the ability to use traffic and to get through traffic without losing lap time or momentum is the mark between the AM and the Pro. And somewhere in the middle are the two silvers.
Entirely so, but also it just depends where on this circuit, with its 13 corners twisted into 2.99 miles, you come across the traffic.
Just let me illustrate the point. Now the gap between first and second is 14 seconds. In that last lap, the gap between first and second opened up enormously, simply for the reasons I've been giving. A silver driver or a Pro driver over an AM driver will always take the opportunity when it offers itself up.
Well, for a lot of these drivers, there won't be much more opportunity because the pit stop window is now open, and the first car to come in regular formation is car number 43, Steve Fresnel. He was running back at the tail of the field. He is bringing it in to a standstill. This is the first of the GT4 runners, the first of the overall runners coming in from 27th position out of the 27 runners. The car that will not have a pit stop extra time penalty of the top 4 cars in this field is car 33. John Minshaw will be handing over. We've just seen his teammate Phil Keane in the pit lane. I would reckon very soon indeed. The pit stop window is open. Has John had enough? Is he going to hand over to Phil Keane? Most certainly he is. So from second place he comes in. He was about 14 seconds down on Jack Mitchell, who's leading overall for Aston Martin. But
third place Bentley in as well.
Third place Bentley in as well, and the gap between them is 3.2 seconds last time around. And of course it should, if they stop equally, be 13 seconds when they go out again, because the 10 seconds extra for the Team Parker, 31 Bentley in the pit stop.
John Minshaw is out of the car, Phil Keane is in, and this is really one of the vital moments for everyone, bearing in mind that the number 31 Bentley is the one that's getting the longest pit stop of the lead 3 cars.
Well, there is that 31 stop. It's still at the regular point in the stop. They'll have completed the stop and then have those extra 10 seconds. They've got to be at a standstill. As you can see, the cars have to be stacked in really echelon, ear of corn formation, whatever you want to say. Derek Johnson just got out of the number 1 Aston Martin, handing that over to Johnny Adam, and the car that's already had trouble, the number 11 Aston Martin, going for a spin. And that was
that's
how
down
far
at
down
Coram.
the order have they gone down? Down at Coram, so that would be a scary moment.
It's coming out of the bomb hole.
So that's Mark Farmer. He's come in. He's already had the damage after the contact with Lee Mole. He's had the pit stop, not scheduled. And as the 33 Lamborghini goes back into the race, that should put it in a very good position. And only now, after those 10 extra seconds, accelerating away from outside its pit garage, is the Parfitt.
Interestingly, the lead Aston Martin staying out. It has yet to make a pit stop. So that's the silver driver combination.
Well, maybe have an advantage too. Jack Mitchell going absolutely beautifully. James Littlejohn, I'm sure, will be the equal. But the whole point about that, the pit lane will be nice and clear and empty when they go in.
Seb Morris behind the wheel of the 31 Bentley. And it'll be interesting to see that actually the Bentley's come out behind what was the 4th place Lamborghini. So Sam Tordoff behind the wheel of the car now.
Okay,
so that's one more position they didn't need to lose. But that was the 10 seconds.
Yeah, but I want to touch on that, because early in the race that was the 10 seconds extra, but that Lamborghini was stopping 7 seconds extra. And what we had earlier, until those horrid couple of laps for Rick Parfitt Jr., was he had more than the 3 extra seconds of advantage, but those 2 horrible laps cost him that cushion that he'd built up. And he said in this race it was all about not losing position, so that has been very, very costly for them. The traffic for the GT4 runners worked so well by John Minshaw, and unfortunately for Rick Parfitt Jr. didn't come his way. Now Sam Tordoff has taken over that number 6 Lamborghini, and he'll be determined to head off towards a podium position. He will be running effectively 3rd overall.
I mean, in reality, the pace of the Lamborghini versus that of the Bentley, you have to say, will favour the Lamborghini. But again, we know that these races are not decided in night pace. It's all about, to some degree, the strategy you use. But that was all played out at the earliest opportunity. It will come down to traffic again. Once again, the traffic that they're going to catch, and just you find yourself in the wrong bit of racetrack at the wrong time, and your competitor will be all over you like the proverbial.
And you know what, you just talked about the speed of the Lamborghinis, and after the pit stops, Phil Keane just suddenly set the fastest second sector of the lap of anybody, and was immediately improved upon by the fellow Lamborghini racer Sam Tordoff, who's running in 3rd place. So yes, the Lamborghini's looking very useful indeed, and I think we're going to see the gap between this number 6 Lamborghini and Seb Morris is doing everything he can in the Team Parker Racing number 31 Bentley could start to eke its way out in the favour of Sam Tordoff, the ex-British Touring Car champion.
Come across the line, the gap 1.6 seconds as they charge. There's our race leader coming in. No? Yes, he is. So Jack Mitchell brings the Aston Martin. Oh, and he squirms under braking really late on the brakes to get the car down to the mandatory pit lane speed limit. Now he'll make his way down and hand over to James Littlejohn. There, the car has stopped.
Yeah, so the 51 GT4 Ginetta pulling away. That's David Pittard taking over from Alex Reed. They were running 2nd in class. Now, there's no need to hurry this pit stop. It all seems to be very much under control. But as you said, John, the snaking at pit entry showed how Jack Mitchell was trying to eke every last tenth of a second out, as you would expect.
That's what you do if you're a silver or a professional driver. You have to use every opportunity available, so that when you do make it into the pit lane, the minimum amount of time is spent. And equally, it's about getting out of the pit lane, having the ability, when you leave that pit line, the line that demarcates the end of the pit lane, to get out and be on it literally on the opening lap.
Now Phil Keane has suddenly discovered that traffic can get in front of him and getting very, very close to the Nissan, trying to work his way around it. So the 33 Lamborghini now in the hands of Phil Keane. As now, where's he going to rejoin?
Well,
because the 24 should be just in front.
I think the Aston will be ahead because the Lamborghini hasn't yet come into sight. Coming there, it is now. So it's just exited for him. It's a substantial advantage still to the 24 Aston Martin.
Okay, 24 Aston Martin now with James Littlejohn emerges, turns right as soon as he gets to Riches, and in the background, well, we'll give you the accurate time next time around. Here comes Phil Keane in the 33 Lamborghini, leading the championship at the moment with John Minshaw sitting on, I think, a 12-point lead overall. But his main thought at the moment is just get past these GT4 cars, get clear line of sight. He's up to Wilson, so he's going to be quite careful there. He's going to go tuck around the inside on the exit. Yes, he will. Plants the power.
These cars have got traction control. You can have quite a wide variation of adjustment. Sounded like getting a little bit of wheel spin on the exit of Wilson's, and whether he has backed the traction control off. Some drivers favour it, some are less keen on it. But that sounded to me like there's a little bit of wheel spin.
So the race leader James Littlejohn going around the outside of number 111. But they've been busy down in the pit lane because Gary Champion is quick in the pit lane, as you can imagine. He's gone and caught out the other driver from 24, Jack Mitchell.
Well, Jack, that wasn't bad. You put it on pole, and then you stayed at the front.
Yeah, I'm really happy with that. Our aim for that one was to get a good start like we did. Managed to get a gap on the first lap, and we was really hoping to get to the GT4s quite early because we know I can be a little bit quicker through traffic, and hopefully that's where we're just going to gain a little bit more time. But no, really happy with that. We've got James a little bit of a gap now, and hopefully we can hold on to that. But anything can happen. So.
What about traffic? You seem to weave your way through quite seamlessly.
Yeah, just get used to it after a while, but no, it's quite hard, especially in the GT3 because you're catching such a great speed that they could not see you. But no, I was trying to keep my eye on, just gave them a little bit more room as well.
Was there a tactic with you sort of coming in so late, so to speak? You seemed to stay out there. Our commentary team were going, he's coming in now. No, he isn't. He stayed out.
Well, not really. No, I was just waiting to get the call from the guys. But I think staying out an extra couple of laps just gave me a little bit more clear space compared to the other Rams in the GT3s. But I'm really happy with how the stint went. So.
Good. Right, keep it up. Thanks very much.
So last the pit stops, there's still 2 minutes with the pit stop window open, so he had plenty of time behind him, Jack Mitchell, before he handed over to James Littlejohn. But James, we want to know what the advantage was. It was 11 seconds, but the accurate time is 6.7 seconds. And Phil Keane is lapping more rapidly. He's already down into 1 minute 49s, but Sam Tordoff is the man on the move. We've got 55 having seemingly a stop-go penalty, and of course this was a car that won the GT4 class at Rockingham. Just waiting for that to be fired back in. These are the longest seconds a driver can have sitting or waiting to be released to go back into action. But what we really want to see is the speed of Sam Tordoff. He suddenly was very quick on his outlap, having taken over the number 6 Lamborghini, and James Littlejohn doing good, solid job in the lead of the race, but 6.7 seconds.
I tell you, it is achievable. Just again, will depend. You can see it very, very back, that fluorescent green Lamborghini beginning to bear down, it's getting up, not going to get through all the GT4 traffic.
Well, one's the GT3 car, it's that number 11 Aston Martin that's had its race of its own, because it had the contact, then it had the rotation. It didn't hit anything, but a little bit of traffic. This will be working to the advantage. Actually, what Phil Keane doesn't want in this is another GT3 car ahead. Much easier to pass a GT4. I think you have to plot for several corners to get past a car of very similar performance to your own. Into Murray's they go one more time. Tidy exit from the Aston Martin, but already there is our race leader, James Littlejohn, starting another lap, but the Aston Martin has to get away. In fact, do you reckon that closed in or gained?
Well, I think the gap was marginally closer. It's just difficult to judge because you're getting that very long camera shot where it isn't easy just to always be precise. Half a second is hard to tell in that long shot. But the momentum, I would say, right now currently is with the Lamborghini.
Right, while it's all happening on the track, we're looking at Phil Keane driving around, but let's hear from his teammate, John Minshaw.
John, can I just ask, I assume the sweat's genuine, is it? You haven't just dampened yourself down with water?
No, clearly not fit enough. No, that was a bit more difficult than that. That kept me very honest. We put a little bit extra bump on the rear, and with going out on worn tyres, it didn't like it. I'd had a little bit of a moment on the first lap, and then sort of recalibrated. But through some of the slow stuff, it was very oversteery. So I think we'll make a change for race 2.
And there were some close moments as well when you were going through traffic.
Yeah. I mean, the GT4 guys are having their own races, and sometimes they just don't see you. So you have to factor that into your driving. And, you know, a couple of times I overslowed the car just to give them a chance to sort themselves out, because there's no point taking any risks.
Well, you're not a slouch in a car, but can Phil make a difference?
No, I think so. He's a superstar. Yeah, no, I'm hoping that we'll claw some of it back. I mean, they had a 5-second penalty, and I'd like to think that Phil will claw some of it back. Although I've got a feeling that James went out on new tyres, so that might be a bit more difficult than we thought or originally thought.
Okay, good. Right, see you in the next race. Thanks, John.
Thank you very much, Gary Champion, down with John Minshaw. And while he was saying that very thing, the gap is coming down. It was 6.7 seconds, it's 5.2 seconds, and now it's just been refreshed on the screen to 3.4 seconds. And 10 seconds further back down the track, but possibly lapping faster, even faster than Keane, is Sam Tordoff. The Lamborghini's coming very good. 23 minutes of the first 2 one-hour races at Snetterton, shaping up very nicely, John.
Well, it is indeed. And John Minshaw just pointing out that maybe one competitor opted to use the new set of tyres for this 1 hour race, as opposed to what they might have done by using the best of the rest. So that's always the balance. You've got 5 sets of tyres for GT3, 4 sets for GT4. You always want your tyre for the race, but of course you're always tempted to use it for qualifying because that gives you track position, grid position.
So the Lamborghini, last lap, 1 minute 50.2 versus 1 minute 1.7 seconds faster for Phil Keane. No wonder that gap's coming down. And equal to him, but about 10 seconds further back down behind him in third place is Sam Tordoff. But certainly, and no wonder John Minshaw describes Phil Keane as a superstar. You can see he's absolutely wringing the neck of this Huracan. Now, there is our race leader, James Littlejohn. Is he on new tyres or not? Can't tell you that for sure. But there's one car between the two of them. But chasing, and really, is he going to touch the curbs? No, he's not. He's staying clear of the curbs. He's got plenty of speed. Phil Keane really on a massive charge. He's got 22 more minutes in which to do this. So you have to say things are looking very good indeed as he goes past one of the GT4 McLarens, that's car number 59, that's Akhil Rabindra. And in the GT4 class, it's been 51's always been in the mix this weekend. Should be first, second and third in class. The McLaren trying to stick in there. Sandy Mitchell started the number 100, and Kieran Haggerty is now at the wheel. But 51 GT4 leader, and just tucked in behind, it's two Ginettas and then the McLaren. I think this one's going to go all the way to finish. Stuart Middleton, they had a longer pit stop, but that is still in the mix. So looking very good indeed. Just checking the GT4 runners. First overall, it is that 51 car. 55 Middleton tucked in behind. So first, second and third, two Ginettas, and snaking away there, Middleton trying to keep the car on the straight and narrow.
What they've now got, the leaders in this GT4 category, is themselves. They've got clear track, they've got clear air, they're not being sort of dive bombed by the GT3 car, so they can actually do what they want to do, focus on their own race. Now, there's 20 odd minutes, just over 20 minutes remaining. It's quite conceivable that the lead cars will once again be making their way through, and that's where everybody has to be careful. But right now, you can enjoy the performance of these two Ginettas leading the McLaren, the top three in the GT4 category.
One thing I just want to clear up, I wasn't entirely sure when we looked at the pit stops whether the number 55 car that's running second in class was being held for a time penalty. No, it's just their garage in a slightly different place.
Well, there are the lead and second place cars. Gap has been halved in the space of just a little over a lap. So Phil Keane is going to be very shortly in position. But whether he can make it work, because catching and overtaking, we keep repeating ourselves, is the biggest problem in motor racing.
Well, there we have the proof, John. 1.5 seconds between, reduced in that gap between them. It's 1.9 seconds on the start-finish line last time around. It looks like it's about just over a second now. So as you say, getting into the difficult zone. And just to finish the sentence I started a short while ago, 55 didn't have extra time during a pit stop. It was Lemma scratching his chin there. It was just because they were at the pit entrance end of the pit lane, so their car was held in a different position. That was just completing the minimum time you're allowed in the pit. So started to scratch chins at Macmillan AMR. The driver's still in the lead. The race 0.65 of a second is that gap we saw through Phil Keane's windscreen. Up to Wilson's they go. Next car they've got to pass is a GT4 McLaren, and it's a half a car length between them. Aston Martin accelerates away from Wilson, going up towards Palmer, but it stretches out, then it comes back down again. The Lamborghini just looking so wieldy.
What the Lamborghini can do is actually get the car really tucked into the apex. The Aston, as it came into Wilson's, took a slightly wider arc around the corner. Now the problem, and I was going to say, Phil Keane, really not much more he can do. He's got to maybe hope that the GT4 cars ahead will open up the opportunity and make that sort of little slot down the inside. If I was in the Aston Martin, I would use all the GT4 cars as best James Littlejohn needs to use those. Slow the pace down to ensure that you slow the momentum down of Phil Keane. Don't race, because all you're doing is really working towards the advantage of the second place Lamborghini.
Well, Jack Mitchell not really sure what to look at the moment, but we've just had a message from Gary Champion. No new rubber on the race leader, so John Minshaw was wrong. Or on Minshaw's, so they're going to keep more for race 2. But boy, that's the GT4 lead battle. 51 of 55 being separated by the outright 1 and 2 in the race. It's the Aston Martin that's gained an advantage. That was very brave from Phil Keane. That was, I've started to smooth, there's no way I can back off. And round Coram, that's not the place to be backing off.
No, it's not, but that's the difference between a pro driver and the AM driver, or silver driver, as the case may be in the Ginetta. You have to force the issue. Bonnet looking like it maybe just the nature of the construction of the material of the bonnet, but there we are, back to this battle for the lead of the race. Gap coming across the line just over half a second.
And in GT4, it's David Pittard from Stuart Middleton. How much of a gap between them? Well, about a bumper's distance. Middleton goes to the outside as they come up towards Wilson's. Can't make the move because Pittard covering the inside very nicely indeed. So 51 still leads from 55. 11th and 12th places overall. Sorry, 12th and 13th places overalls, but Middleton tucked in behind. They had an Aston Martin, had a McLaren on their tail. That's dropped away just a little bit. But the Aston Martin that does have something on its tail is James Littlejohn. And a little look there from Phil Keane. Not really a serious one, just a bit of an unsettling one for you to be working with.
Just a little look down the inside going into Agostini's, just to keep James Littlejohn on his toes, to force him really to be looking in his mirrors rather than focusing on what he needs to do. They've gotten through that little flurry of GT4 cars. Clear racetrack again. enables both drivers to focus. You can just see the difference between the driving styles and the characteristics of the lead and second place cars. Track limits, car 43.
And number 66, don't worry, that's not the lead battle. John Minshaw quite enjoying it in the pits. He's done his bit. But all along, as these two compromise their own racing line, it's no surprise the third place car of Sam Tordoff is closing in. He's able to run much more at his own pace on his racing line. But he's another 10.5 seconds back behind the car we're riding with now, which is Phil Keane. And Phil looking really suddenly very, very serious in the number 33 Lamborghini. What can he do about James Littledon in the 24 Aston Martin? But he's going to have to just keep working away at him, John.
Very difficult to try and do anything in the exit of Coram. You exit the corner and you're really on the brakes before you get out of the corner. You don't want to be right under the rear wing. You want to have that little opportunity to use your strengths and try and get momentum off that final corner. Murray's, as it's now been called, and up the long pit straight into Riches. Again, opportunity will arise coming up the next corner. Wilson, but not close enough to the tail of the Aston Martin.
And while that's
late in the brakes, mind you, Phil Keane braked considerably later. You can see how much he has gained. Now he's trying to get a bit of a squeeze on. But the Aston Martin isn't giving him room. He's going to have to go the long way around Palmer, and no one ever has gone wrong the long way around Palmer. And I'm talking about Jonathan, not the racetrack.
Yeah, and in fact, just tucked in behind is John Barnes. He's running 10th and last in GT3 because, of course, we saw that number 11 Aston Martin getting it wrong. But he's lapping faster than this pair ahead of him. So our race-leading Aston Martin with James Littledon. There you can see the second Aston Martin, number 11. He's a lap down, but he's just enjoying the battle. He's getting tucked in. He's right behind the Lamborghini. We're riding with, looking through the windscreen in that 33 Lamborghini. Phil Keane doing everything he can, just out of shot. There it is, the second of those two Aston Martins. A lap down, but at least getting in the main picture.
Once again on board with Phil Keane. So tensions, demon tweaks, and just getting a little bit fraught because we've now only got less than 15 minutes of this race. The Lamborghini, Phil Keane was able to catch to the tail of James Littlejohn and the Aston Martin, but not been able to do anything subsequently. That's the ebb and flow of the various different balances of performance. Again, the use of the sets of tyres you've got. So the Aston's got good initial squirt out of the bomb hole, manages to get, but again, you can see just how wide now looks. Phil Keane was thinking about it, to have a pop down the inside into Murray's, and the Aston was one part of the track, came back again. So the pressure is being applied. Now whether the pressure will respond in a pass from the 33 Lamborghini within 14 minutes and 13 seconds to go.
Well, there we are, less than a fifth of a second. You can see that slower exit speed out of Murray for our race leader, James Littlejohn, cost him a bit of straight line speed, but unable to maximise and to profit from it is Phil Keane. He's going to have another go up towards Wilson's. They go. Still the race leading Aston Martin of James Littlejohn, not on new rubber, worth pointing out, nor is the Lamborghini giving chase. How much closer would you like it to be? That is how close it is. The Aston Martin tucked behind them, running third in this group, is a lap down in 10th place. And now we're back to the GT4 battling groups, and they're in the way just a little bit, but keeping out of the racing line. Very well done by the Ultratech Nissan. That's favoured our race leader a little bit, but Phil Keane doesn't bother to wait and wave hello. He's just simply diving past, and again, right to the edge of the circuit and beyond. We've had a lot of drivers warned for going out over the curbs. I think number 24 will be watched on there. Mark Lemmer watching not just the 33 entry of Phil Keane running around in second place, but Sam Tordoff continues to make progress, only 8 3/4 seconds down in third place overall. The clock is ticking away, just over 13 minutes remaining. I think Tordoff will be able to close in, but not enough to make a roll in this race. He should be going for the last step on the podium.
What's interesting is the pace of the lead two cars on that last lap was 151.4, 151.5 respectively for second and third place. But actually the car that's going quickest of all right now is the third place, Sam Tordoff, McLaren, Lamborghini, 148.7. The gap when they came across the line at the last point was 8.7 seconds. Now, they're not going to take 3 seconds out of these lead two cars every lap, but Sam Tordoff has got the momentum, and he will be now thinking 12 minutes to go. Bit of traffic, bit of favour, bit of, I hate to use the term luck. Look at the Lamborghini, goes one way, can't dive up the inside, hasn't got the squirt where it needs it, and then the Aston consolidates, lovely balance within the Aston Martin chassis, but watch under brakes. Look how close Phil Keane can draw up to the rear of the Aston.
Should we talk about another driver going well? Matt Griffin, hardly talked about him. Duncan Cameron started the green Spirit of Race Ferrari. and handed over to Matt Griffin, and Matt's just set that car's fastest lap of the race, fastest lap of anybody last time around out there. And another person we haven't talked about for a while is Seb Morris. He came out into 4th place, remains in 4th place, has no answers at all to Sam Tordoff, but that's a good result. That 10-second extra time in the pit stop, so I think he and his teammate Rick Parfitt will be very pleased in that indeed. In fact, there's a 10-second gap behind Morris to Ratcliffe, the 2 Welsh drivers,
can
so that's
the
good.
Aston get through or not? No, it can't. So will Phil Keane try to use that? He's coming out of Ogies up into Williams. That might have just given him the opportunity, a little bit momentum. Doesn't look like it's going to translate into anything now as we come down the Bentley Straight, under the bridge, turn left, turn right at Nelson's. The bomb hole. I mean, what other racetrack could have a corner called the bomb hole but Snetterton?
The old bomber commands here back in the Second World War, but it's the fighting is out on the circuit at the moment, and everything that Phil Keane is trying, he is making James Littlejohn look in every mirror he has just to spot where he's placed and to confuse it. Running behind them is another Aston Martin, and the number 11 TF Sport entry is a lap down. Mark Farmer started the race, but now John Barnes is doing everything he can. I think he's just enjoying the view. He knows he's a lap down, but Phil Keane hasn't time for that. He's just not bothering to look in his mirror to see where the 11 Aston Martin is. He's looking for any chink past the pits one more time, starting lap number 26. Is he going to go to the outside of Richards? You then run out of space and then duck up to the inside. This is the gap.
This is the opportunity, but the Aston slowed it down. James Littlejohn did the right thing as Phil Keane set fastest. Last lap was 1:51. Again, the Aston slightly the rear of it looked like it was getting loose, maybe just the angle from the onboard camera within Phil Keane's car. That was maybe the most opportune moment that provided for Phil Keane to think about, can I take the punt? Can I take the risk and go down the inside? Will I compromise myself? Will I compromise the battle between 1st and 2nd place?
To be honest, it almost was a punt up the rear, but it didn't happen to James Littlejohn. But how he missed it, that must have been a real sharp intake of breath for Phil Keane. So 59, McLaren is not taking quite the racing line there, I'm afraid. So that's
down
in
to the bomb
GT4
hole.
class.
Here we go. Phil Keane goes way wide. Can he make the undercut on the exit? So this is coming out onto. Listen, I was through Ogie's now, coming out onto the straight. Look how wide the Aston is. Here's Phil Keane's chance, and he's taken it.
And taking it how? Come on, John Mitchell, give us a smile. That was a move he's been working on for half a dozen laps, and just a rather untidy exit from Williams onto the back straight, onto the Bentley Straight, and we knew if there was a chance it would be grabbed by Phil Keane. So John Mitchell, Phil Keane, they won both of the races at the opening meeting of the British GT Championship at Alton
And
Park.
just look at this. I mean, okay, this is the rearward-facing camera. Very wide angle lens for those technicians that love their cameras and lenses. But already you can see that Phil Keane is opening up clear air between himself and now the 2nd place, James Littlejohn in the Aston Martin.
Right, back in the world of GT4, that's the top 3 we're looking at. It's David Pittard, Stuart Middleton and Kieran Haggerty in the number 100 McLaren. It was his sister car that we just saw go around at the bomb hole, Akil Rabindra, the racer. But it's 2 Ginettas and still that McLaren trying its hardest to hunt them down. And behind them, number 72, just out of shot. That's Adam Mackay in the Track Club McLaren in 4th place at GT4. But there is the class leader.
You just watch these 2 Ginettas, they're just so beautifully balanced. You know, they're light, they've got low unsprung weights, sort of mid-engine, front-engine car, driver sitting virtually on the rear wheel, so all the messages the driver gets are immediate, whereas if you're in a mid-engine car like the McLaren following, you still get the message, but there's a fraction of a delay. Maybe it might be less than a 10th of a second, but for a racing driver, a 10th of a second is almost like a lap.
Exactly so. In fact, the McLaren really struggling to hang on. You can see the Ginettas now starting to drop it, and certainly Mackay trying to do his bit, Haggerty trying to do his bit. John's pointing to the screen. Tordoff is down to 2.3 seconds down in 3rd place.
The gap, yes, 2.2 seconds. So that's big change potential. Just over 7.5 minutes remaining. So
well, I tell you what, the
traffic, making a 1-2 for the Lamborghini.
What's happening? Well, I don't know what tyres they put onto Tordoff's car, but he's able to lap 1 minute 48s, 1 minute 49s, and only.
There you see it. There is the battle for second place.
For second place, because the 2 cars ahead of him, Keane, who's leading the race, and James Littlejohn in the Aston Martin, are doing 1 minute 51s, 1 minute 52s, and that gap, a blink of an eye ago, John, we thought, well, it's come down from 14 seconds to 8 seconds. It's now come down to 1 second, the gap between 2nd and 3rd.
I think in the last 5 laps, maybe because of the battles going on at the front, plus having some of the GT4 cars being lapped, running on his own, Sam Tordorf, has really run down second place Aston Martin. So he'll be thinking, if I can do the same to James Littlejohn as Phil Keane did, can I make it 1-2 for Lamborghini? But he's caught up, the same problem will exist. Where will I find the place to get by?
Right, there's no GT4 traffic between the top three. You can see our race leader just turning into Wilson's now. Then, actually, as I say that, a GT4 Ginetta just comes into view. But it's still second place for the 24 Aston Martin. James Littlejohn, third and absolutely flying. Wow, the exterior acceleration out. He's going to have to back off number 6 because it's Palmer's next. He's on the outside, but he's got the momentum. Is he getting around the outside? We said it couldn't be done.
He's done it.
Well, jolly well has
great overtaking manoeuvre. That was Sam Tordorf. I think actually the rear traction of the Aston Martin is no longer quite as strong as it would have been at the start. Now, that was a pass I've never seen before at Snetterton. The long way around. Can he make it stick? Because James Littlejohn has tried to come back. But for Sam Tordorf to go the long way around the Palmer curve, which is probably one of the quicker corners on the circuit, that is the mark of a really outstanding driver.
6 minutes remaining, and whether he wins or not, you feel that Sam Tordorf will just treasure that moment around the outside of Palmer. Got it to stick just at Agostini as he went past the Aston Martin of James Littlejohn.
And he's only 2.8 seconds behind the race leader, Phil Keane. And last lap was 1 minute 54. So last lap was 1:48. Best for that. Last lap was 1:50 maybe for Sam Tordorf. Phil Keane has got the message. He's actually speeded up, but the pace of Tordorf was slightly compromised in the way that he had to find his way around the second place Aston Martin. There's the lead Lamborghini. We're looking for second place Sam Tordorf to come into sight. Should be coming into sight. There it was. We just got the glimpse as we panned across as they come on to start finish straight.
Yep, I think we'll have our race leader pulling clear on that lap, but it's the subsequent laps, and we don't have much time. We have a change in the GT4 class because 55 Stuart Middleton has got past David Pittard, so Pittard will be furious with that. Number 51 back to second place in GT4. But just want to run down the order. It's Keane from Tordorf, Littlejohn. Haven't talked about Morris for a while. He's fourth in the Bentley. Ryan Ratcliffe being hunted down by Johnny Adam in the battle for fifth place. But in GT4, it's sorry, there it is, Adam, and then Matt Griffin also making good progress. Then there's a big gap back to Martin Short, Callum McLeod, etc. Now, this is the GT4 change of lead. Great little drive here from Stuart Middleton. And simply got up the inside and very well. I think you wonder where the track was.
Well, the leader got compromised by catching up to the tail of the Bentley. So that, and again, now McLaren thinking, well, I'll have a bit of that action as well. So yeah, there we see the lead car, the second place now, the McLaren. It's really just sort of been the tail-end Charlie of this leading trio, not really able to exercise the values that the McLaren has, and just on this circuit where nimbleness and handling, lightness are the key ingredient.
Yeah, so Kieran Haggerty toyed with there, thought he had half a chance, but now it's back into clear traffic. Clearly Pittard was compromised in his line there by the GT3 runners ahead of him, and that was the moment snatched by Stuart Middleton to take the class lead. Here is the overall leader, Phil Keane. What's the gap? It was 4.3 seconds back to teammate Sam Tordorf last time around. Will that come down? You certainly feel it might, but actually it was a slower lap from Tordorf last time in the traffic. But we've got 3.5 minutes remaining, so will it be win number 3 from start number 4 for the Minshaw and Keane pairing? Very successful run.
There is
2017 title, and McLaren tucked in front of the number 6 second place runner Sam Tordorf. It was 4.382 seconds last time. Now here's the GT4 lead. It's still the 51 Lanan Racing Ginetta. Oh, just backed off a little bit behind the number 7 Parker Racing Bentley. Oh, that's why
the car.
We said there was no track left for him to drive on.
The lead car was slightly compromised on the exit, so he overran over the curb on the grass, opened the door, offered the invitation, and it wasn't refused.
The overall battle outright on us, where we can see Seb Morris in 4th place, Ryan Ratcliffe in 5th, Johnny Adam closing in 6th place. But gap between 1st and 2nd, 4.8 seconds, came down to 3.7 seconds. So Tordorf still has the legs on Phil Keane, but the clock is counting against him. In GT4, it does look as though it's going to be 2 wins on the trot for the 55 crew. Stuart Middleton, and the race started by Will Tregurtha. Other places on the podium, 100 crew will certainly be heading for 3rd, unless actually they're much closer to the Lanan Racing Ginetta this time around. They seem to have been hanging on, but they're a little bit closer there, so Kieran Haggerty may yet depose David Pittard, the number 100 McLaren driver, doing his most through Corham, the corner that goes on and on and on. You see that whole splay of Norfolk, and then it tightens up when you get to Murray's and have to try and have a very tidy exit to get the power down as soon as possible to accelerate onto the kinked start-finish straight. There they go through the kink, past pit entrance and past our commentary position, and it won't be for many more laps because we're into the final 2 minutes of this race.
And you can see the gaps between first, second and second, third, not quite equidistant. As we got the 88 Mercedes AMG.
Well, it's a battle for position because Martin Short,
he's got ahead.
Is fighting very hard. Callum McLeod, though, is trying to fight back in the number 7 Bentley, attacking from behind, former Formula Ford champion.
But look, I mean, you can't do much about straight line performance, and the Mercedes AMG GT3 was able to use its performance just to pull away the Bentley. Callum McLeod closes again, normal ebb flow that you get around a racetrack. Watch and see what happens when you come on to Bentley Straight, whether the Mercedes can continue to stretch that advantage.
It's ironic, isn't it? The Bentley is so bad down the Bentley Straight, but that's just how it goes. So that's the battle. C'est la vie. So that's Martin Short holding down off Callum McLeod in the battle for 8th place. So the 88 ABBA Commercials Mercedes stays in front, but Callum McLeod really using all the track that he possibly can. He's really on the move.
Hustling.
So into the final minutes of the race, it's Phil Keen leading the way. 3.9 seconds last time around, clear of his teammate Sam Tordoff. It looks like it's going to be a Barwell Lamborghini 1-2, and delightfully for Phil Keen, he's got clear stretch of track ahead of him for what is the final lap of the race. A chance to consider his options. He started at nearly 4 seconds clear, and it looks like everything is under control. He had to work hard in traffic, had to work particularly hard to get past James Littlejohn, but really nailed him with a very, very good passing manoeuvre.
I mean, outstanding. That manoeuvre around the outside of Palmer was, I think, quality driving. You know, you have to rely on the competitor, in this case James Littlejohn, not to squeeze you, which you would, on some circumstances, some drivers would clearly do.
Well, you can see in the background the shot, just there, you can see the flash of blue and white, which is Sam Tordoff's Lamborghini coming round in second place, but out through Bombhole, all the way, long right-hander of Coram for the final time for John Minshaw, who's in the pits, and Phil Keen, who's finishing the job that Minshaw started from the outside of the front row. The 33 Demon Tweaks, Barwell Motorsport, Lamborghini Huracan just have to go through the little kink, and victory will be theirs. That's 4 starts in this year's 2017 British GT Championship, and win number 3. In the background, closing all the time. What was the gap at the finish to Sam Tordoff? Under 4 seconds? Yeah, 3.8 seconds. And James Littlejohn and Jack Mitchell in the silver pairing should be coming home third in the Aston Martin. There it is, number 24. And then, of course, tucked in not so far behind, Seb Morris, gathering useful points, which is all they thought they could do with that 10-second extra pit stop time. 55 leading the way in GT4 in 11th place overall. Stuart Middleton sharing with Will Tregurtha. David Pittard in behind. He's just under 2 seconds back. Got caught out in traffic with GT3 runners, and the moment was grabbed by Stuart Middleton. And Stuart just finishing off the job. Victory at Rockingham. And looks so he's going to do it all over again here at Snetterton, and we'll have to do it all over again this afternoon when we have the second of the 2 1-hour races.
Different time, different track conditions, lots of other events taking place here at Snetterton.
Different starting order.
Maybe different rubber on the track as well. Heat build up, although we're seeing maybe a bit of a cloud build up, but nonetheless, as you get to late afternoon, normally the warmest part of an afternoon. So, of course, and everybody will have gone into hospitality and had far too much for lunch.
Don't say lunch, I'm remarkably hungry, but 55, great job. They'll have earned their keep, and of course the driver who finishes, they get the shorter time off, because the driver who finishes this race will be the one who starts the second of the 2 1-hour encounters here at Snetterton. But beautifully driven entry, the Ginetta from HHCC Motorsport. Still pushing on through Murray's on the final lap, onto the start-finish straight, and David Pittard keeping him very honest indeed, giving chase after that little slip-up in traffic to come home in second place in the GT4 class, and it should be the McLaren of Kieran Haggerty that comes home in third. Now, as quick as he is on the track, John Minshaw isn't quite fast enough to get away from Gary Champion down in the pits.
Can I just say, John Minshaw's now congratulating the team, etc. You were sitting down just then, which is very cool. You've just won the race, and there you are, sat in a chair with your feet up.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the next race. You know, this one's done. So
good effort, though.
No, very good. Yeah, James wasn't an easy guy to get past. Keeney's got some good pace in the car. But he did a good job of holding us up. And I saw Sam's move on James as well. That was a great move. the Lambos are really strong around here, but it'll be different when we get to Silverstone.
You've got that sort of persona of someone that's really quite nervous, and now you're not quite sure what's going to happen in race 2.
Well, that's exactly it. Who knows? I mean, we're in a pretty good place because we've saved ourselves a set of new tyres. So Keeney will go out on those and see what he can do a couple of quali runs.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. Alrighty.
Thanks very much, Gary. I always love it when a driver just tosses a little sort of grenade in and then leaves the interview. Just something for the other teams and other drivers to think about. But here are the results. A 1-2 for the Barwell Lamborghinis. John Minshaw, Phil Keane taking victory by almost 4 seconds from teammates Liam Griffin and Sam Tordoff. Jack Mitchell, James Littlejohn fought so long leading the race, but didn't in the end have an answer to the pace of the Lamborghinis. Parfitt and Morris didn't think they'd get many points. They've done well. They got 4. They had the maximum time penalty in the pits. Lee Mole, Ryan Ratcliffe fighting run to 5th place. And Johnson Adam Crew started to close in at the end in the second of the Aston Martins, but had to settle for 6th. Duncan Cameron and Matt Griffin 7th place. Richard Neary, Martin Short 8th. Ian Logie, Callum McLeod right on their tail at the end in 9th. And Farmer and Barnes cursing that rotation that dropped them down until the tail of the pits and the extra pit stop. 11th place overall, victory in the GT4 class. Wiltshire Gertha, Stuart Middleton really fought hard for that, and Alex Reid and David Pittard hardly put a wheel wrong, but did end up in 2nd in class. And of course, incredibly close at the front end, Sandy Mitchell and Kieran Haggerty right on their tail, showing it's not just Ginettas that can go playing at the front end, so McLaren really tucked in there as well. Adam Ballon and Adam Mackay, 4th place overall. And showing Aston Martin could be in the mix as well. Will Moore and Matt Nicol-Jones, 5th in class. Some great racing up and down the order, but it was the 2 Ginettas that just seemed to have enough of a speed advantage at the very top end. They've diced out for victory, and it was enthralling over the course of an entire hour. James Littlejohn being given a pat on the back, talking to Phil Keane down in the Parc Fermé area. But for Macmillan Racing, they gave it their best shot, and so far it looks like it's a Lamborghini, not an Aston Martin circuit.
At the minute, you have to say that's pretty correct. Nevertheless, James Littlejohn did the best he could, but I think the Aston began to suffer from lack of rear traction, rear grip. Maybe we'll get an interview with him to find out the story, but certainly the Lamborghinis seem to have just overall the ability to tuck in tighter and get on the throttle and the traction off the corners. That might be just the difference between a mid-engine front-engine car and a mid-engine rear-engine car.
Yeah, also we got to see an awful lot of it because we were looking through the windscreen of the number 33 Lamborghini at the tail of the Aston Martin, the number 24, and particularly as it was going out of the corners like the Wilson's hairpin. But it was a cracking race, 1 hour of great fun, and it was enthralling from the very outset of the race. But what an opening lap from our pole sitter. He got clear. Oh, well, there was some contact further back down the order. I think that was a 5:01, having a little bit of body reshaping. But Jack Mitchell leading away from pole position. He got clear of the harum-scarum among the traffic. 3.3 seconds clear he was at the start. There's a spin for number 7 going around. Ian Logie.
We didn't see that.
We didn't see that, but now we've seen this. That was Mark Farmer. Just had an extra pit stop because I think he had a bit of tyre rub. Then he had the spin. Number 24, Jack Mitchell came in, handed it over to James Littlejohn, but unfortunately there was an Exocet missile coming in from behind, and that was Phil Keane in the 33 Lamborghini. He had to fight so hard. The GT4 runners tried to keep out the way. Jack Mitchell, he started the race looking on nervously from the pit. Could his teammate hang on? And the simple answer there was the moment where he couldn't. Going onto the back straight, James Littlejohn went a little wide, and the moment was grabbed by Phil Keane. He doesn't need to be asked twice. And then the GT4 runners super close, and Stuart Middleton made the move stick, just managed to edge his way past David Pittard, and that sorted out the answers there. Victory overall for the 33 crew. The sister number 6 Lamborghini came home for a Lamborghini Barwell 1-2. And it's super busy down in the Parc Fermé. Let's go down to Gary, who's caught up with Stuart Middleton. Victor in the GT4 class.
Well, Stuart Middleton's with us. We're about to do the podium, but well done. Good effort there.
Yeah, just outstanding effort by all the team. Amazing effort considering we had a 10-second penalty in the pit stop. So yeah, I'm absolutely over the moon with that. Awesome.
Very good. Go get a trophy. Well done, Stuart.
Thanks very much, Gary. And yes, to take victory in class with the 10 seconds extra in the pit lane, really an absolute feather in their cap. So just waiting for the top runners coming to the top step. Phil Keane being followed up by John Minshaw. On the left of the screen, we've got Sam Tordoff, Liam Griffin. Right of screen, James Littlejohn and Jack Mitchell. Top three overall, squeezed onto the podium here at Snetterton. They've got to do it all over again. And the AM glory goes to Martin Short and Richard Neary. Richard on the left. So they get the AM trophies, very impressive too. Third place trophies to the Aston Martin crew from Macmillan AMR, but then it's Barwell first and second. So Mark Lemmer's going to have to build some more trophy cabinets down Chessington Way. But for all these drivers, that is job number one. They have to focus on what is coming up later this afternoon, but of course, you've got to spray the champagne. And the second race will be kicking off for another 1 hour of action, kicking off at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Packed day of racing here at Snetterton. And the next race is pretty much approaching the grid now. Martin Short wandering around in front. But Phil Keane and John Mitchell, they've worked hard. Yeah, that's what I was just wondering, John.
I just wondered, maybe they're going to do something in between the two races to dissipate that mouthful. Mind you, it probably was a mouthful, but when you're so adrenaline driven, it just goes into your system. Within nanosecond, they'll be feeling the effects.
Yeah, they'll be feeling a bit woozy. Have to have a 4-course lunch, John, I'd recommend. Sunday
Silver
lunch
service,
on this bank holiday
silver
weekend.
Service.
We have standards, John. We eat out of styrofoam. So there's the podium, packed day here at Snetterton, but an enthralling race, but the Lamborghinis really looked very handy indeed. But of course the Lamborghini drivers take every opportunity to say, but wait, Silverstone, very different circuit for the next round, and that's one of the beauties of the British GT Championship. It races all around Britain, great track variety, but also goes out to play in Belgium as well. So plenty for the drivers to really get their teeth stuck into and see if their car can be the right one to have.
Well, it's the ebb and flow of balanced performance and success, and Silverstone wide open spaces, high speed corners.
So the GT4 runners coming up onto the podium. Third place crew, number 100 entry, that's Sandy Mitchell and Kieran Haggerty, the Blackpool Garage 59 crew. And then Alex Reed and David Pittard coming up onto a rather soggy looking podium after all that champagne spray. They fought really hard for Lanan Racing, but didn't quite come out on top because the top step, Stuart Middleton and Will Tregurtha, as they were at Rockingham.
Just wish they had the wet weather driving shoes on.
Yeah, could be slippery out there, gentlemen. But that was a cracking race, and really they were those top two Ginettas were at each other from the outset of the race. 1 hour of action and keeping them very honest indeed with the Garage 59 McLaren crew. Close, but not quite able to make a move. So Sandy Mitchell on the right, Kieran Haggerty, they're the first to get their trophies, but up on the top step, the biggest trophies, the biggest smiles, no doubt, for Stuart Middleton and Will Tregurtha. Starting to make a habit, but certainly the Lanan Racing crew keeping them very honest indeed, and you certainly feel those could swap around, because of course we've got more pit stop penalties for the second race. Right now, will the GT4 runners go for a bit of champagne? I think they're doing mainly the spraying at the moment. And there's poor girls on the side of the podium. If there's noise in the background, it's the mini runners already going out onto circuit, and that's what I love about the British race meetings. So, one race ends and another begins. It's the mini challenge. 3 races here at Snetterton this weekend. This is the second of the 3. They've got another kicking off after the second of the British GT rounds, kicking off at about 5:15 this afternoon. And as is the way with the mini challenge, absolutely packed grid of cars. Just getting their sighter lap in around the circuit. They've already had the one race on Saturday afternoon, and here on Bank Holiday Sunday we're riding around the track with Kyle Reed, Lawrence Davey Racing entry. Look, bit of a heat haze here at Snetterton.